Hello, everyone. This was a surprise. So I'm going to watch Mark solve Jello. So I'm excited to do this, and this is exciting for two reasons. So one reason is that I set this puzzle on stream with help from many of you who are in chat. So you can wave. Maybe you can see some of the stuff. You'll see when we pull up the grid that it is attributed not to zetamath but to zetamath and chat. So I was quite intentional about that because I got lots of cool suggestions for the puzzle as we sort of worked on it together. And so if you enjoy this video and you enjoy watching me work through this, you can also go back and watch the original stream of this puzzle being set. So it's sort of like a full circle on stream from making the puzzle to seeing it solved by Mark. Second, I don't get very many Mark features. In fact, my last Mark feature was ambiguity. If you go back to sort of like Mark's standard feature of the day, I have had two Mark solves between those though, because Mark solved my puzzle from the app. By the app I mean the 500k subscriber thing. So I got to watch Mark solve that, and Mark did a beautiful job of solving that puzzle. I was really happy. And Mark also collab solved vignettes with Simon, which was also a lot of fun to watch. So I always enjoy watching Mark solve my puzzles. And I don't know if I should say this, but my parents always tell me that the Mark videos are their favorites. So we shall enjoy this. I am quite looking forward to seeing this. So let's get started. Let me know how volume is. I think Tristan got it all set up already, but we'll see how it is. Welcome, Luke. Glad you can catch a React
Hello,
live.
welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, and a fascinating challenge today. Now, zetamath occasionally sends us puzzles, sporadically, not regularly, but this one has been sent in, and zetamath apparently worked on it on his stream somewhere with a chat group, and basically they constructed it together. I suspect the driving force was zetamath, but it's a really weird rule set, and well, I'm looking forward to having a go. Don't forget, on Patreon, Trick or Treat, the Skunk Works brilliant Sudoku pack of 6x6 puzzles. Have a go at that. It's not too hard to begin with. Give it a try. And Line Sudoku is out. Do update it if you already got it before a couple of days ago, because there have been a couple of changes. Just best to have the really up-to-date one on your app.
Oh yeah, I heard one of the clues in the line app was, or one of the puzzles in the line app was missing a clue, so it wasn't unique or something like that. So so definitely update it. As I've said around the stream, I contributed several puzzles to the line app, which is very exciting for me because I originally found Sudoku through finding a Cracking the Cryptic app, so it's very exciting to me that I have puzzles in a Cracking the Cryptic app. I think in the first batch of 20 puzzles, I think I have one total puzzle in there. But I gave them, I think, 4 or 5. So you can expect, if you sort of go through all of them, some of them will, some more of them I think will appear. We'll see how many. I'm looking forward to it.
On the device. But there's all sorts of other apps that we have. Of course, there's Sven's Sudoku Pad and our merch. Check out the links under the video. But the first link is to this puzzle. Now, it is in... it's in Sudoku Pad, and it's been prepared by zetamath, and I don't know how to replicate the way he's prepared it. So,
to be clear, when Mark says it was prepared by zetamath, what Mark actually means is it was prepared by Ranksk. Because Ranksk, when we set this on stream, probably a full hour of the 4 hours of setting this puzzle was trying to get the aesthetics right after the puzzle was set. And Ranks did a great job of sort of pinpointing the things that didn't look good and figuring out alternative ways to present them that would make the information clear. Menu also deserves a great deal of credit for this, for correctly identifying what I think a lot of people would have misunderstood about the rules if we presented it. But yeah, there was a lot of bouncing back and forth, and a lot of just like, no, that looks heinous. No. So anyway, I think we got the grid looking good, but it took a real team effort, and Ranks is the one who I think deserves maximal credit for getting the lines to look, the dashed lines in particular, to look right.
I'm going to use his version, and I hope you can too. Yeah, and I mean, one of the features of, okay, let's do the rules. The rules are not standard Sudoku rules.
I'm going.
In each...
By the way, while Mark goes over the rules, I'm going to hide my camera so that you can read them in case you don't already have them memorized, because the rules here are not at all standard and are weird. Once Mark is through the rules, I'm going to put my camera back up. Except what's actually going to happen is I'm going to forget I've removed the camera, and I'm just going to keep talking, and someone will remind me that I should put the camera back up. So that's how this usually goes if there's sort of non-standard rules. And this is definitely more than a little non-standard rules.
Each non-grey cell, we place a digit from 1 to 9. Digits cannot repeat within a row, column, or box. So we don't have to worry about putting digits in the grey cells. Okay, odd, but that's what's going on. Now, there is a 10 clumps rule. We've seen a 10 line where digits along a line have to add up to 10 in non-overlapping sequences.
Does anyone know if Mark has done 10-line puzzles on video before? I don't think I've seen a Mark 10-line... I don't think I've seen Mark do a 10 lines puzzle before. But I'm guessing he has done them because he's tested them for apps or tested them for Simon or whatever. Solved one recently. Interesting. Your 20 lines puzzle was great, Ranks. So yeah, that would be cool. That's right. Manu points out he solved Math Pesto's 10 lines puzzle lately, and Math Pesto's 10 lines puzzle had a single 10 line amongst the 10 lines. That is true.
In this puzzle, every digit, i.e. in the white cells obviously, is part of an orthogonally connected clump of digits that sums to 10. So digits may repeat within clumps. Clumps don't overlap with other clumps. So you could have a clump here maybe. And as long as, I mean, that could be 1, 2, 3, 4, but you could have a repeat digit in those cells and then add those two on to make 10. I mean, this is a weird rule. You could have a clump here, or here, or here, or here. All sorts of possible clumps. So
MicroStudy did describe this rule set in his LMD comment, and this is one of my favorite LMD comments, as, quote, delightfully insane. So yes, I do quite enjoy this. Also, spoiler, it turns out that in the final solution, no clumps have a repeated digit, although I didn't change the rules for two reasons. One, I wanted it to perfectly mirror 10 lines. Two, if I do another 10 clumps puzzle or a 20 clumps puzzle or whatever, I definitely want it to be possible to repeat digits within clumps. And three, a lot of the interesting logic in the puzzle is ruling out the case that there's a digit repeating in a clump. It just so happens, for whatever reason, at the end of the day, none of the clumps actually have a repeated digit in this puzzle. But I very deliberately wanted to include that possibility anyway, even though it's a little weird that it turns out it doesn't actually happen in this particular puzzle.
A few clues. Right, the last bit of cluing is the circles. There are 5 circles in this puzzle, and a circled cell gives the number of clumps in the up to 9 surrounding cells, including itself. Now, when we get wording like that, think Minesweeper. So this one is counting these 9 potential cells.
By the way, I think I stole the up to 9 from Mixo. I love that wording. I used to say the 9 surrounding cells, including itself, but then people would get confused because they'd say like, oh, well, this circle's on the edge. It doesn't have 9 surrounding cells. What on earth do you mean? And I couldn't ever quite tell if people were saying this just to be pedantic or because they didn't understand it, but the phrase up to 9 surrounding cells, I think, is chef's kiss perfect for communicating what is meant in a way that is actually correct, even for the cells that happen to be on the edge of the border or whatever.
Now, not all of those are in the puzzle because the grey ones aren't. So this one would have a maximum of 7 if you could have 7 different
Jesus
clumps
correct.
in
The
those
up to
cells,
9
or a
actually never
minimum of
has
1
9 in
if
any
they could all
circle.
be in the same clump. Clump is clump is already sorry. Clump is already starting to sound like a weird word to me, as though it can't be real. I'm
going to be honest here. I called them 10 clumps when I just like wrote it down when I was just trying to communicate quickly on screen what was happening. Uh, with the full intention that I would rename them to something that sounded less ridiculous than 10 clumps. And the title of the puzzle was originally 10 clumps, and I changed it to Jello. And I had basically already published it on LMD before I realized I had never actually gone back and thought of a word other than 10 clumps in order to publish it. So, whoops.
going to immediately have a break. And
Clumps are the new throuple.
Right,
Very
let's
true.
hope I edited that out. Now, the circles, yeah, okay. I was going to explain something else about the circles, but I don't know what it was. A circled cell. Oh, these ones don't have 9 surrounding cells because they're on the perimeter. That only has 6, effectively, that it's maximally counting.
Yep, the return of Zeta Cam,
Of
indeed.
which 4 are in the puzzle there. This one has, again, possibly 6 cells that it could theoretically count. That's how the up to 9 surrounding cells, including itself, works. Okay, those are the rules.
Yeah, I suppose I should say I wanted to at least contemplate if I wanted to change it. I might have decided that clumps was fine, but as it happened, I just didn't even contemplate it.
There's very few clues in the grid. I'm fascinated by this puzzle, but a little bit frightened. I'm going to restart.
I'm glad Mark noted that. That was something that really kept sort of standing out to me at the end of this when we were done, is how few clues there were. Chat had to fight really hard to get a 5th circle at all. I think the puzzle, if I was setting it, it might have ended up being 4 instead of 5 circles. But yeah, like really the circles and what cells have been grayed are the only clues. Like in a way, like you can't consider like you have to put a digit here a clue, I guess. But yeah, there's scant little information, but somehow it works out anyway.
My clock and say, let's get cracking. So, okay, the first thing I'm thinking is that this cell is in a clump of 10 and it can't be on its own. There is no 10 digit. So we can join it up to that one. But the same is true for this cell. That can't be on its own. So
Darian
that has
suggesting
to join up
10
to this one.
agglomerations.
So they're now all the same colour. They're all in the same clump. And that clump is either 3 or 4 cells big. It can't be more because you can't get any repeat digits. It can't get out of the box. Now, these numbers are sort of known because of the circles, actually. This one either sees, if that is yellow as well, that's a 1. But if that is not yellow, that's a 2. So those are the 2 possibilities. The same's true here, but it's looking at that cell. If that's yellow, this is a 1. If it's not, this is a 2.
I talked about this a little in the video when we set this, because when I sat down on stream to say, like, look, I'm going to do this, it was because I'd been working on this for a week or two. And I had tried a million different combinations of rules and genres and everything and gone through everything. But it turns out that actually the very first draft I had this break-in of having sort of 3 cells like this that forced this trio and then had circles to sort of force stuff from that trio. Now, in the very first version of this puzzle that I tried to set, I didn't have the gray cells don't have to have digits. rule. I just had gray cells don't have to be parts of 10 clumps, but I found it was really sort of I didn't like how it ended up working, and it didn't feel natural. But it's funny that actually what ended up here is almost exactly where I started. But like literally at one point in the middle of setting this, the puzzle was a U-Bahn. So it was about as far away as possible. Like there was a Philomeno at one point. I was trying to see if I could make it into a Japanese sums puzzle. So it's funny that it sort of ended up almost where it began. But the thing that I had to find to make it work was this idea of just having cells that didn't have digits, which was, as it happened, not high on my list of things to try, but it worked out well.
Ah, okay. That means that one of these is a 1, and therefore one of these is yellow. I don't know which one, but one of them is yellow. And therefore we've got a 4-cell region, all in the same box, that must be 1, 2, 3, 4. And the other one goes in one of these. That's weird, isn't it? So I think, I was going to say, we can do the same for all of these cells that stick into a kind of cubby hole on their own. That one has to be joined to this one. And that one has to be joined to this one. And that is absolutely true. But those are the only other 2 cubby hole cells.
Hey,
in the
Aberrant,
puzzle
I'm
part,
doing
the
well.
first 2.
Oh, by the way, I
So
have to call out, is that Scruffy? I'm pretty sure, even though it is the tiniest picture, I'm pretty sure that is Scruffy from Futurama in your little picture, right, Aberrant? Unless I am imagining it. I mean, it is like microscopic, so it could very well be that I'm imagining it, but I do love Scruffy the janitor.
it didn't actually get us very far. However, this is clearly not part of yellow. It's different. Oh, that's interesting, because if this is yellow, that cell gets cut off and must join to that cell.
Yeah, Jay's was big on minimizing the total number of alcoves because it's sort of like the alcoves sort of give you information in a way that's sort of cheesy. I loved the alcoves, the 2 alcoves that connected to the same cell for the opening. I really liked that. But yeah, I did sort of try to sort of not have too many. This gray cell was mandatory for the break-in. As it's going to happen, and just to sort of preview, the way this puzzle was set, sort of like there's a branch going out around this way clockwise and a branch going counterclockwise, and they were set quasi-independently. And then it sort of turns out that they sort of meet in the middle. That's not too uncommon in puzzles that have this sort of geometry to them. By this sort of geometry, I mean sort of like you start here and have some stuff in the middle where it sort of works out that you sort of independently goes around in both directions. Then you have to sort of make them sort of mesh at the end. That's also true, for example, if you go back a couple CTC features, the puzzle Buffet was the puzzle where you had to sort of build your own lines of a bunch of crazy kinds of lines. That also got set in this sort of like part clockwise, part counterclockwise, and they meet in box 9 kind of way. Hey, Texas Game Mom, I hope you're doing well. Always great to see you around here.
If this is yellow, that cell gets cut off and must join to this cell. Oh, and what is in this cell? This final circle in box 1. It's not 1, 2, 3, or 4 because they're all in yellow. So it's at least 5. And it joins with one of the, hang on, this is weird now. Didn't I say it had to join with one of these? I did, but I was wrong. And I was wrong, and that luckily has just saved me because that was a false conclusion. Because of these are available to that cell. Right, the reason I know that it's a false conclusion, that the other one of these joins
Probably
to
not a
this
9.
is because the other one of these that isn't 3, 4 and yellow must be at least 5 as well. And then both of these cells that join together are at least 5, and they must be at least 5 and 6, therefore, because they can't both be 5 by Sudoku rules. And then they've added up to 11 rules and bust the clump wide open. So that's really, really brilliant. So we have to find a way that whichever one of these is not yellow can avoid joining to that. And the only way that one couldn't
I'm
avoid
very glad that
joining to
Mark has
that
jumped right
if
on
it
the
got
intended break in
isolated.
here.
It would have to. So that is actually the
Say My Name is asking for an explanation of the circle digits. The circle digits count the number of 10 clumps. So if this is a 1, which it's about to be, it's saying that in all of the surrounding cells, there's only one color of clump. And this one being a 2 is going to say that actually there's yellow and there's one other thing that's not yellow.
yellow cell. This one is not the yellow cell, and the way that that can avoid joining to this is by joining to this cell, and therefore that is purple. Isn't that brilliant? That is a flipping brilliant start to the puzzle. So that's 3.
I wonder, by the way, if Mark is going to use the pen tool for borders, because I found the pen tool for borders very helpful here. And actually, the reason why there are dashed lines here is to make sure that you can make clear marks with the pen tool in Sudoku Pad, and also sort of clearly delineating the boxes and not lose track of the boxes. Because the thing that sort of ended up really screwing with me when I was setting this and test solving it and everything was keeping track of, when I was drawing lines to separate 10 clumps, keeping track of what was the box line and what was the 10 clump line. Again, Rank's ability to sort of get this to look this good, I was really happy with. And yes, Jim, I set this on stream with lots of help, and it was very helpful. Many people contributed many cool things. The one that stands out most to me, I remember this circle was Garian, and I remember this gray cell here, which does brilliant work at a much later point in the puzzle. I remember J40 suggesting that exact gray cell.
3 or 4. Oh, we know these numbers now because this one is now seeing 2 colors in its surrounding cells. This one is only seeing 1. Now, what's going on in purple? This cell is not 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 as well. And I was about to say that therefore we can bound this. In fact, let's get some lines.
Okay, good. We are going to use the pen tool. Okay.
Let's cut off this region. Oh, not with.
We're going to use purple?
Purple. Let's use black.
I was getting quite surprised if that was the choice.
You wouldn't think I'd ever used the pen tool before, would you? There we go. There's one clump. And in fact, I'm just going. There's no need to do the outlines, but I'm going to. Now, clearly it's separate from that region. Now, I was going to say that it must only be 3 cells big, but that is not necessarily true. Oh, we've got a circle as well. Yeah, that is not necessarily true.
Yeah, so Jim was saying, good to see it's a CTC feature. I'm also delighted that this is a CTC feature. As Mark mentioned at the beginning, I don't submit puzzles very often, only if it's something, I mean, bluntly, I submit puzzles if I want people to make puzzles like them for me to solve. That's usually my my motivation when I submit a puzzle, is I want someone else to make stuff like this, and if they feature it, it's more likely that people will make stuff like it. But I did submit this one, both because I think it's a cool idea and I would love to do stuff like this. And even already I can say Paulfly has already set a puzzle like this that I'm keen to solve once it's done testing. I think it probably is done testing, but I'm not streaming until tomorrow. But also, since it was set on stream, I thought it would make a cool reaction video to be able to do a reaction video to a puzzle that you could also go back and watch it being set.
Because, oh, it is necessarily true. Because if this was going to take 3 more cells, they'd all be in the same region. They'd have to add up to at least 6. And plus that makes at least 11. So actually this is bound. This is only 3 cells big. I want to say yay big.
Yay big.
Now, this can't be a 9 or an 8 because it's going with 2 others. If it's a 7, that's 1, that's 2. If it's a 6, that's 1, that's 3. If it's a 5, I don't know, but then they're both from 1, 2, 3, 4. So they must be from those maximally. Now, this circle, I was about to consider that. It sees yellow. It sees purple. There's only four other maximally colours that it could see. So it's 5 or 6 by the rule. And the cell itself must join to something else. It can't complete a 10 clump on its own. And that means 2 of these cells are going to be in one region. And now the maximal number of regions that this cell can see is 5. So that's what it is. That is a 5. This is 6 or 7. There is a 1 in these cells and not a 2. This 5, I don't know where it's going to go. In fact, yeah, that's quite interesting. It's not a 2-cell region now. It's at least a 3-cell region.
I will say, by the way, in case you are solving a puzzle like this, I mean, I don't know how many puzzles like this there will be, but I will say the real constraint, the real pinch point in this puzzle is the fact that there's only 4 digits from 1, 2, 3, 4. Good night, menu. And so the thing that's sort of constantly the source of tension in this puzzle is that lack of 1, 2, 3, 4s. So really, Mark was a little hesitant to pencil mark these as 1, 2, 3, 4. But as I think Mark is going to rapidly find, actually, you really need to do that because you want to keep track of that. And the reason why the digits 1, 2, 3, 4 are special is those are the only, well, I guess maybe I should put it this way. Every pair of cells in the same clump that touch have a 1, 2, 3, 4 in them. Because if there's a pair of cells in the same clump that touch that don't have a 1, 2, 3, 4 in them, they sum to at least 5 and 6, which is 11, which is already a problem. So sort of that is going to dictate a lot of the geometry. And that's the thing that I was keeping track of enormously as I said it, and I think Mark is going to rapidly pay attention to as well.
And this is a different, okay, let's give that a colour. That can be blue. Oh no, blue next to purple, not so good. Let's make it red. This one, I'll make that blue, because that is going to be, you see, what we've worked out from the 5 is that these 4 cells include 3 colours, 3 different clumps. And therefore, the 5 goes with a red either there or there. The other 2 are totally separate. So I can actually draw my thick borders there. Yeah, and one of these is red, and one of them is a new colour that's not blue to make the 5 work. It's not orange either. It's not purple. Well, we'll call them blue and... we can't use grey, can we? I've really messed up the colours here, haven't I? Let's call them blue and green. I don't know which is which, but we've got a green.
I feel like blue was
now.
not the optimal choice.
No, not blue and green. Sorry, red and green. Red and green. And those of you defending the red-green colour balance,
hey, Jennifer, welcome.
where they can tell our red and green apart. Now, anyway... Right, whatever the 5 joins to is a low digit. 5 can't join with a higher digit than 5, and it can't join with another 5. Actually, it couldn't anywhere in the puzzle. So therefore, whichever one of these is red is low. Now,
that is an interesting observation, is that it is actually a huge distinction between 10 clumps and 10 lines. It sort of feels like 10 lines are just more open. Or sorry, it feels like 10 clumps are just more open than 10 lines, but actually because you can't do diagonal 10 clumps, 5, 5 is a combination that is a constant pain anytime your 10 line goes diagonally, but in 10 clumps you never have to worry about 5, 5 as a specific combination.
Now, this one can't be 1, that's just absolutely obvious. Does this, the 6 or 7 needs a 1. Yeah, okay. So that is a 1. Now, that's got interesting. Right, we said that one of these is green, and that's blocking off the 5. So if the 5 red went this way, and it would have to go past here. It would be at least 3 cells. Then these two would have to add up to 5. But that's really interesting because they couldn't be 1, 4, and they couldn't be a 2, 3 pair. Now, just before I go nap on this,
Welcome, Joseph.
I
Glad you
need
could
to
catch it.
consider the possibility that it sneaks round to there and takes in an extra cell. Have I missed something?
Yeah, so Mark is pointing out the annoying fact that you constantly have to keep track of that you don't know your 10 clump ends. But the right way to sort of avoid that is to always ask yourself, what is the minimum sum of these cells if it goes this way? And if the minimum sum is bigger than 10, then you know that you've escaped it. And so I'm sure that's what he's about to do to rule out this possibility that he is currently ruling out. But that's the way to sort of think about it. Rather than saying, how would this add to 10? Try and convince yourself that, hey, I should avoid, or I should make sure the minimum is too big. That way you avoid getting got by things like, oh, I could actually do a repeated 1 here or something.
Out. I'm thinking about
Ben
a
is
red
listening to
region
double speed
there,
zeta.
and
That
we could
sounds
put, say,
dangerous.
a 1 here and have a 1. No, we can't. We can't get another 1 in there. So red doesn't go this way. Red definitely goes this way. That's so peculiar. Okay, what I'm now getting, and what I suspect zetamath and all his chat buddies have been laughing at me for not understanding so far, is that finding the positions of the low digits, 1, 2, 3, and 4, is probably going to be very essential in this puzzle. Now, I have to be actually careful here.
To be clear, I think he's going very smoothly through this so far. I mean, I don't think he's stopped making deductions since he started at any point, so I think he's doing very well.
Although these must both be low, again,
Also,
this
welcome,
could
chat
curve
buddies.
round into another box and have a repeat. Well, yeah, it could. This could go 5, 2, 1, 2. So this red may not be finished. I think I can draw this border in, because we can't have 3 reds in box 4, or we're going to add up to 11. I can draw that in because I know this is green. Right, this is also green. And now let's try and use my newfound knowledge that low digits are really important. We've already got 2 low digits in this box. We're definitely going to get another one in those cells. Now we've got 4 cells left and we're only allowed a maximum 1 low digit in them. I don't know what that means actually, that's annoying. This blue has to expand. Could go there or it could go there. Maybe I need to think about this being 2, 1, 2, because that would be quite, well, it would really use up low digits, wouldn't it?
It lasted quite a long way into the setting process. I will tell you, by the way, that this could still be 2, 1, 2. I'll say, by the way, in setting this, of course, when I was setting it with you all, we didn't know where the holes were. So actually, like, one of the things that chat was really keeping track of and was very useful was chat would identify, like, this puzzle has no solutions unless this cell is a hole. And then we could sort of add the holes in, just sort of figuring it out. So weirdly, like, we, as we were setting the puzzle, were deducing where the holes had to be, which is very different than sort of like knowing where all the holes are in advance. But the path that we set for solving it ends up being very similar anyway, even though we were making a bunch of deductions ourselves that would not have to be made by the solver. I will say the thing I'm intending to do for my next puzzle, who knows if it'll happen or if it'll turn out being something completely different or whatever. But I want to do a puzzle of some sort where the rules are like this for Sudoku, except you can draw in gray cells yourself. So you're just given a blank 9 by 9 grid. I mean, not a blank 9 by 9 grid, a 9 by 9 grid with clues, but you're just told you just need to fill in some digits to satisfy all the clues, but you can gray out whatever cells you want.
I okay, I'm thinking about putting 2, 1 here, but now I'm thinking about its effect. Well, these are going to be 2 low digits. Hang on, this is quite interesting. Okay, I've got all of these 5 digits left in box 4.
So a couple questions in chat. So I was just saying I want to do this puzzle, and I realize I'm now completely distracted from what Mark is doing, and I'm in a completely different direction. But in this idea where there's going to be sort of like make your own gray things, D-Web is noting that's going to be really hard to make that unique. My actual plan is to make it a 2-star killer, pure killer puzzle. That's my plan. So I don't intend to have gray sweepers. I intend to just make it a 2-star pure killer puzzle, where I get to have like 3 6 cages in one box, 3 cell 6 cages in one box, and people have to figure out sort of like what combinations that could be. The only additional rule I think I'm going to have, although I'm not sure because I've sort of like come up with a bunch of different sort of ways to sort of arrange it, but I think I might have a no repeats rule that you can't use the same 6 cage more than once. But I don't know exactly if I'm going to keep that or make it just pure killer or whatever. But I think that'll be enough to make it unique. We'll find out.
Cool. Now, I'm only allowed a maximum 2 low digits in those. That doesn't seem too constraining at first, but think about this. We've got this 2, 3, 4 pair looking at those cells. If we put a 1 in here, then there are no low digits possible here. These would both have to be high, these two, and then they'd have to be in separate regions. And that means this one would have to join to orange. But then orange would need 2 low digits. Okay, that is possible. But the low digits would both have to be here. Oh, that's weird.
He's all over this puzzle.
And I was trying to get us to say there must be a 1 in these cells. No, there must not be a 1.
I think Mark is making this puzzle look a lot easier than it actually is.
In these cells. Because I thought we were going to need at least 1 low digit here, but I'm not certain now. Because this could be high if they were both low. They'd be the last 2 low digits in this box. I think there'd be a 2 and a 3 with a 5 here. That would be a 1, 4 pair. And then these could be high. Well, no, oh yeah, this could be high and get out here to a 1. Oh, it's so weird. This puzzle's creepy.
Glad I could set a Halloween appropriate puzzle. Creepy is,
Right.
I think, new. I don't think anyone's described one of my puzzles as creepy before.
Right, I'm going to rule out at least that this red goes round the corner here. He said confidently, because that would require this to be a 2-1 pair, so that could be a 2. If that was a 2-1 pair, the low digit in these cells would be 3 or 4. You could not then have, these would both have to be high, and therefore they couldn't go with this potential 3-4 pair or whatever these were that involved.
Yeah, Lockie is noting Mark is a really good solver, which is very true, and he comes up with some crazy spots. That's also very true. Mark is, and I think even more so than Simon, and it really shows, Mark is historically a speed solver, so he's like one of the fastest Sudoku solvers. I know he's still like regularly, apparently they do this in age brackets. And Mark is still like in the UK pretty high in his age bracket and these sorts of things. When you're speed solving, you really develop the skill of sort of being able to look multiple steps ahead to see something, rather than trying to sort of construct necessarily a sort of strict logical proof. And so something that really really shows out is that skill set really sort of shines in Mark. And so that's a big difference between watching Mark solve puzzles and watching Simon solve puzzles. Is Simon is really reluctant to sort of use the I can see 14 steps ahead sort of thing, but Mark will come up with some explanations for things that are really like, oh yeah, I can just see this. Uh, this actually goes back to sort of a really old thing, is sort of Mark and Simon arguing about what the definition of bifurcation is and whether Mark is really bifurcating or not. And Mark's definition of bifurcation is if I can see it in my head, it's not bifurcating, which is a perfectly reasonable definition of bifurcation, although it has some problems that I've discussed before. Like, it makes whether or not a deduction requires bifurcation depend on how good your visualization is. But also it means almost nothing is bifurcation for Mark, because Mark can see filling in like almost the entire grid in his head. If you go back and watch Mark's solve of ambiguity, which is like one of my, I think that was my 5th CTC feature, I want to say. So that was a long time ago, because this is like 35 or something. But if you go back and watch his way of thinking about the break-in, involves filling in about 14 digits to see that it would not work if you did this. And so the way I thought about it was that the break-in was entirely about the old, like, where does this digit go in this box sort of deduction that you see often. And Mark figures that out in a way by figuring out that he'd have to fill in the entire box and wouldn't have a place to put that digit, which works out, but ends up being like a wow. I'm amazed that you can see that in your head, that you can see that after you fill in all the digits, there's no place in the box for this digit anymore.
12 to 3 or 4. Therefore, they'd have to be separate, and this one would be stuck. Okay, that's a bit complicated. Let me show you what I'm seeing. If we were to put 2, 1 there, so we could have a 2 here, doesn't matter about filling in the detail, then these cells would have to have a 3 or a 4 in. But also, these cells now see a 1, 2 and a 3, 4 pair. They both have to be high. Now, this one can't go with a pair of digits there that either include 3 and 4 or another high digit, because that makes too many. So it can't go with that. It can't go with this, which is also high, and therefore it can't exist. That's what I'm seeing. So this is not a pair that goes around, a red region that goes around the corner. It ends.
That is complicated, but I believe it. Josh suggesting 10 clumps mixed with Japanese sums. That was actually when I was first trying to figure out, when I realized the problem. The reason, by the way, why are there gray cells in this puzzle? The reason is because if you don't put gray cells in the puzzle, then you've got a really annoying problem with 9s, which is that all the 9s that are in the grid need to go with 1s. And then suddenly you now have to deal with 8s, but all the 1s have been used by the 9s, and so blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. So I needed to sort of omit some digits. Japanese sums is a perfect way to omit lots of digits. So I actually thought, after I realized that this wasn't going to work as a vanilla Sudoku, that it was going to be a natural Japanese sums thing. But then the Japanese sums thing just didn't quite, I couldn't quite figure it out, because there was this weird interaction between the sums you were given and the 10 clumps, which I think in a like second puzzle for someone to set and solve with this, I think would work well, because you'd be able to say like, well, I know this needs to break up in these things or whatever based on the Japanese sums. But I couldn't sort of figure out a reasonable, coherent way to set it that would be sort of like for the first time anyone thinks of that, then you can do that. Yeah, as DWeb says, pure Japanese sums lets you use a bajillion D, million D repeats. And the fact that this version has boxes sort of addresses that for you. I mean, in a weird way, you can think of this as like almost Japanese sums, except I've told you where the digits go. but that works. Uh, uh, so uh, so setter logic, I think, is a phrase that's used in two different ways. So what Ranks said is, if someone in chat had pointed out what Mark just argued in chat, I probably would have ignored it and not used it, because I would have called it like the logic that someone who is setting the puzzle is doing. Because like when you're setting a puzzle, you need to know that. So if I was setting a puzzle, I would probably do that argument that Mark just did to convince myself that I can't force this to be 5212. Uh, and so I would then not do that, and I'd keep that in mind. But I wouldn't use it because I wouldn't want the person who is solving it to have to do that. Now, Mark enjoys that kind of deduction, and I in no way disparage any solver who enjoys that kind of deduction. If people enjoy it, that's great. It's something I try to save people from. But there's sort of the second type of setter logic. The second sense in which people use setter logic is, well, if I was setting this puzzle, I would put this clue here. Or if I was setting this puzzle, I would want to make it work out this way. So often setter logic is to notice that there's this really pathological thing that could happen, and then assume that that has to happen. And I guess there's even a third sense of setter logic, which is the one Acid Helm is talking about, which is to say, I know this is a Zeta puzzle, so therefore I think it's going to work out this way. Or I know this is an Andrew Sarkis puzzle or a Grockles puzzle, so I think it's going to work out this way, or whatever. And so you can use sort of your meta knowledge of how you think that setter would likely have made the thing work out.
And it ends here. So this cell is now blue. I don't know if that's a 3-cell region, but there we go. We've done some of that blue region. These two do add up to 5. Now, we've worked out these two can add up to 5 with a 5 here. Now, the only way you could get a low digit into these cells if it is...
Yeah, as Garion says, this is a zetamath puzzle, so probably I'm not intended to do a lot of extensive arithmetic in it, for example. Like, I think Reef, for example, is a recent puzzle of mine where I think a number of people actually inferred that I would not have them do the amount of arithmetic that actually was required. I think I'd still argue it wasn't a lot, but it was a lot of people were thinking, oh, it's not, this is too much. And so they sort of like went around the break-in before getting to it, because I generally put so little arithmetic in my puzzles, and that was a little bit more. So I think that's totally a reasonable thing. By the way, new subscriber. Thank you, KJL. Welcome. Thank you. Great to have you.
Is if it's a 1, and that would then be a 2-3 pair. Now,
Zach
the low
welcomes
digit
you as well,
in
by the way.
these two, and there must be at least one, would have to be a 4. And the high digit, I was going to say it would be a 6, but actually it could be a 5. 5 counts for this purpose, and then that could join to a 1. I don't know, that's really annoying. I really thought I was on track to actually get this all done, but I've been stuck in circles around this area.
Oh no, is my mic weird, Worm? Or did I get too close to it? Something like that. Am I doing ASMR by accident? Lakia is noting it's fine to do setter logic or look ahead stuff or whatever. Yeah, whatever is fun. I think whatever is fun for you is absolutely how you should solve a Sudoku. You should never let anyone tell you how you should solve a Sudoku when you are solving it. I tend to find the thing that I enjoy most when solving, and I think also because it sort of links into setting, is figuring out how can I phrase this deduction that is at the moment a little messy. Like I might see something and I might see it in a messy way, and then my inclination is to ask myself, how would I see this in a way that looks more familiar? Partially because then I enjoy the act of going, oh, actually you can see this as, and then say something that's like a short pithy explanation. But also I think that gives me a better chance of seeing something like that again in the future, because it sort of becomes reproducible. It becomes sort of part of the parlor of tricks that I have available in various things. So I tend, when I'm solving, to most enjoy sort of trying to find the way to articulate it that I like, is part of what is fun for me. But don't let what's fun for me dictate what's fun for you when you're solving. Do whatever do whatever works for you. Uh,
For a bit too long, and maybe I should think about something else. Because, for instance, these two greens, they need a low digit amongst them. All right, let's go back there. And it's not 1, it's 2, 3, or 4. And there's another low digit here and a 1 here. So these 4 cells can only have a maximal 1 low digit. Now, can those 3 be
that is
a
the question.
clump? That's quite interesting. I don't think they can. Because if they were a clump adding to 10, there'd have to be 2 low digits amongst them, which would be either 2 and 4 or 3 and 4. And they can't form a valid clump in the same box.
That's an interesting way of seeing it. I like that.
Another repeat digit to make 10. So that's not green. That's quite interesting. That's orange now. And that has to join to that cell, which is orange. And these need a low digit in, and these need a low digit in, and everything else in the box is therefore a high digit. That one can't be a 5. Now, the high digit cannot join to those because there's only 1 low, or those because there's only 1 low. So this is a new colour on its own. That is purple. And we can draw some lines in. I think this is right. I mean, I'm finding the puzzle quite confusing. I'm really prepared to admit that. But still, this one, similarly, well, I was going to say, the trouble is that could be a 5. Could that join to a 2, 3 pair here? No, that would break this cell. So I don't think that can join to orange either, because there's got to be a high digit in this pair.
Thank you for subscribing.
That's a simpler way of seeing it.
Great to have you.
So this is a different colour from
Welcome
orange.
from Zach as well.
And must join to that, and we're going to make it blue, therefore. And this, well, it's either blue, or it's orange, or it's new. Oh, and it's already seeing 3 different colours. And it's got a circle. That's quite interesting.
You're very welcome, Robin. I love doing these reaction streams. It's a lot of fun to talk about setting. Oh, by the way, as Acid Helm says, please like the stream if you've not yet liked the stream.
Now, there's 1 low digit here, which is 2, 3, or 4. Now, can that join onto this? The answer...
This, by the way, this puzzle is entirely ode to my enormous love of virtual triples, in particular, or virtual quadruples. And there's a virtual 2, 3, 4 triple in row 2 at the moment, because one of these needs to be low and it can only be 2, 3, or 4. So this cell definitely can't be 3 or 4. Yeah, the amount of times where there's something crazy going on in one of my puzzles and it amounts to noticing that there's a virtual pair or virtual triple is very high. And this rule set is just perfect for creating them all over the place because of the exact thing that Mark noted about counting low digits.
Is no, because there's also a high digit here. So even if you assumed the minimum 2 and 5, they'd still need a 3 here. Then you'd have 2, 3, 5, and that would break this cell. And if you went up more from 2 and 5, there's no digit here available. So these don't join to that. They are an island in and of themselves. Right. Now, what is... So that's a pair adding up to 10. Using, well, either 2, 3, or 4. I don't know which. And this, is this a pair adding up to 10? I don't know that I can tell that. It might come out. Pick up another low digit here. Yeah, this is really all about counting the low digits in each box. That is a huge deal here. Because this is low, because it's going with a high. So that is 3 or 4. Ah, Well, this can't be blue anymore because they'd add up to at least 7 plus a minimum 5 there. So blue finishes up here. 3 or 4 goes with 6 or 7 in the top row. That is not blue or orange. It's not purple. Is it? Ah, bother. If that was 3, 1, 6, is that actually possible? Weirdly, it's not, but it's a slightly complicated region. If to join those together, they'd all be purple. That would go 3, 1, 6. It's the only way you could get 2 numbers less than 10 into those. And that would make this a 7, and that would make this a 3 next to another 3. So that is not purple. I mean, that's a good enough conclusion for me. So these are a different colour. They are now yellow. Okay, I have decided. And now purple has to get out down here. And we almost know how many colours yellow sees. It sees blue, orange, purple,
Yeah,
and
row
yellow
3, column 8.
itself.
Yeah, the way I'd have seen it was this cell also needed to be something else, but perfectly
And
reasonable
maybe
the
a
way
new
he
one
did
there.
it.
So it's 4 or 5 in that cell, which is almost a high digit. In fact, hang on, in this row, there's
There we
3
go.
low digits already, and there's going to be another one there. This can't be low. That is a 5, and this is
There
a
we
different
go.
colour, therefore, from yellow. So we'll make this one red. And that obviously can't be one cell, so it joins up to something here. That's interesting. This cell is going to be part of an at least 3. Anyway, what is the 5? Okay, the 5 needs a low digit with it, so we've got another low in this row. We've got one there, at least one there, not sure here.
Kind of
Let's do
Sudoku puzzle.
the lines here that we can do. Oh, and this won't get to 10, so it does need another cell. Oh, that's lovely. Right. So, sorry, just straightforward maths, but I can't always see it because I'm thinking about so many different bits and bobs. So that's yellow. These two add up to 10. They either use a 3 or a 4, so that's going to be the other one of 3 or 4 from there. Now, what's this? This is either purple, green, or blue, creating obviously a 3-cell region and leaving 2 other 2-cell regions behind. That's so weird. That's the sort of thing that makes me get a bit creeped out, because like this has to mutate on to blue, green, or purple, but I don't know which. Now, why can't I get any of the numbers? I want these numbers done.
10 clumps with the German whispers. Oh, that's interesting.
It's a really interesting puzzle, actually. Now, could these really both be... That's not interesting. Can they both be low? I don't care about that answer. These are either 7 and 2 or 6 and 3. If they're 6 and 3, that's a 4. And this would have to be 2, 8. If they're 7 and 2...
He could maybe care about it,
though. This would have to be 4, 6. Is that right? I think that's right. So these are either 7 and 2, in which case...
So for me, the lowest hanging fruit here, and I'm not saying it's low hanging fruit, just the I think with what's pencil marked, the thing that he could do that would help is note that there's a 2 in row 2, and I'm not saying because there has to be a 2 in row 2, but because there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 virtual quadruple in row 2, and the only places the 2 can go are all in box 2. So he could corner mark a 2 here and then notice that now these digits are quite restricted.
This can't have 1, 2, or 3. That is 4, 6. Or they're 3 and 6, and we've got a 4 there, and these are 2, 8. So they're definitely even, which is weird. Now, if they're 6, 4, that's a 7. That's also a 7, so this is a 2. If they're 6, 4, we've got 7, 2.
That's a very nice way to put it, is that row 2, column 2, Garion says, has to go
Oh,
in green just by Sudoku.
yeah. Then green is going to have to come out because you can't have 3, 7 here. That's an interesting thing. So if there's 6, 4, you've got 7 here, 2 there, you've got 3 here and not 7. Well, in fact, 3 and what? 3 and a high digit that can't be 5, can't be 6, and can't be 7. Impossible. Okay, good enough. That is not a 6, 4 pair. That is a 2, 8 pair. This is a 3. That's a 6. Now purple adds up to the right number. Now we get 4 and 3 there by Sudoku, not by spaghetti. That is not an 8. This is not a 3 now. So that's not a 2. Now, the low digit here is a 4, definitely, because 1, 3, and 2 have been used in the box. So there's a 4 and a high digit that is not a 5. So that's 4 and 6. Done. Green is finished. This cell below it is blue or purple. This is now not a 6. This is not a 4. That's not a 1. This is 7 or 9. Could it possibly be with a 2, 1 pair?
More Sudoku.
No, for this reason. If that was 7 with a 2, 1 pair, i.e. the one case in which this is 3 purples, then the only low digit left available for these is a 4. And that would make this a 4, 6 pair and break that cell. So this is not. This is a 2-cell region. That doesn't
perfectly
mean I know
fine.
that this
The
is
4,
a
6,
9,
seeing that
though.
that's a 7 is also a valid
this is
option.
3 or 1. Blue, this cell now is blue. Blue is a 3-cell region, which does, okay, these 2 cells are at least 2 and 4. They're not exactly 2 and 4, because that would need another 4. So then they're at least 2 and 5. And the max this can be is a 3. So that's 1, 2, or 3. So we've got 2 low digits there, and at least one more coming here in box 5. I've probably missed some basic Sudoku. Oh, look, if there was a... Oh, yeah, 4, 6 pair makes that a 7 in box thingy. Now, if we were filling in this cell, it would be a 5. And I'm tempted to stick a 5 there, but then I need to be very careful because there is no reason for that to kind of rule 5s out of these cells, or it has no status. Anyway, this has become a 9 since that became a 7. Now we're getting some other digits. 3 there. This can't be a 1. And that's getting interesting. Can it be a 3? These would add up to 7 without using a 1 or a 3. They would be a 2, 5 pair. If this was a...
I don't know why this is so internalized in my brain. Like, I'm not sure that this is a fact that's really worth knowing, but I have in my brain the fact that the only way to make 10 in 3 without a 1, if there's no repeats, is 2, 3, 5. So that fact shows up in my puzzles disproportionately often because at some point, I don't know, Simon or Mark said it and I internalized it. And therefore that shows up. And so this is one of the umpteen million times that shows up in one of my puzzles.
2, these would add up to 8. That's impossible because they couldn't use 1 or 3 in the column or 2 in the box. So actually that is a 3. This is a 2, 5 pair. And that's more progress. This has become a 4. So that's a 1. Look, just by Sudoku in this row, this is 2, 7, or 8. This one sees 3, 1, and 4. Good grief. That's a 2. Then we get 5 there. We've got so many low digits now. The only low digit we could have there is a 4. Is that 2, 8 pair not done? Now, we've had 2 and 3 in this box. The low digit... this one sees 1, 2, 3, and 4 in its row. That is a high digit. This one has to be low, but it sees 1, 2, and 3. So that's a 4, and that's a 6. And that shape is instantly finished. And we've only got... Right, one of these has to be low. The only low digit left available is a 1. So one of them is a 1. This is now high, but I have to include 5 amongst the possibilities for high this time. So 5, 7, 8 or 9. And there's a high digit here that is not 6. And that kind of peters out. Oh, well, I mean, look, we've got a lot of the grid filled. I'm half an hour in, but this is a brain melter. Oh, this digit, this is limited because of the circle. This can't be more than 3 because this cell itself must join to one of the others. So there's a maximum of 3 different colours. It also now can't be a 1. So that is 2 or 3. And we're looking at either 2 regions or 3 down here.
I think it took us about 4 hours to set.
We can't have any low digits in these cells.
I think part of that is that sort of like I'd probably spent about 4 hours before I streamed this sort of trying every variation until I was pretty sure what the rules were. So like, I'm going to guess that probably this is like 2 weeks of me thinking plus 4 hours of me playing around on my own with weird things like the U-Bahn version of this puzzle that may or may not someday exist because I both kind of like it and also it would be a U-Bahn. But then on stream, I think it was a solid 4 hours plus some amount of testing and playing with aesthetics to get it all to work out.
Because of 2, 4, 3 and a 1 somewhere there. That's the value of putting in those. So that's interesting. So these have to be separated from each other by a thick black line. And this one, well, I want to say it goes with that, but I'm not certain. These are 2 different colours, though.
I don't know why this didn't get a color. He said these 2 go together and therefore need a 1, but I feel like he's now hurting from the fact that these aren't colored.
What's going on there? 1 and a high digit here as well, which again could be a 5. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure. These can't join up together. That must join to that. I don't know why I haven't already put a colour in. Let's go green this time. They can't join onto this because the minimum value would be 12.
I laughed because he then said exactly what I said.
Line coming in there. They can't join to that because still the minimum value would be 12. So these are a separate island. 1 and 1's in them, so it must be a 1-9 pair. And these don't have a 9 in as a result. That is also not a 9. This is 5, 7, or 8. So what color are these?
Jays is talking about how you could do this rule set with 0 through 8 instead of 1 through 9, just to give you a lot more flexibility. The only problem is that the zeros all have a potential uniqueness issue because the zeros could, in principle, go with any clump unless the 0 is needed to connect 2 clumps. Or the 0 is needed because of a circle clue or whatever. But sort of like a 0 that's touching 2 different clumps could go to either clump, which could cause problems with getting it to be unique. That's my only concern with zeros.
These are purple. Now, if that's a 5, this is definitely a 5-3-2 set, and that is very possible. And if that did happen, this is seeing 3 different colours and is a 3. And so that 5-2-3 set would specifically go 5, 2, 3. Now the only other possibility is that this is a 7, which can't go 7, 1, 2, so it must go 7, 3, or an 8, which must go 8, 2. This cell always ends up being a 2 or a 3. That was probably obvious, but I've only just worked it out.
I feel like he argued that in a more sophisticated way than was strictly necessary. It joins to this cell,
and it doesn't join to this one, because that would give you a minimum value of 13, I think, between that area. So this one is now a new color that is orange again, I think, and it must join to that cell, which has to be low, 1 or 4, because it sees 2 and 3 everywhere. Now, These three can join together, or those two and those two, maybe even to a third here. This is where it, again, feels really mutant and scary. I just don't know what to do. But you can sort of see how the puzzle keeps filling itself. It's very weird, this. Now, is this circle telling me something here?
Whoever it was in chat that was saying, like, because like the only clues is what cells are there, basically, like this has to march like one cell by one cell around. Like this is quite aggressively local, in that, like, because, you know, the only clues you have are these circles, and otherwise you just can't say anything about this cell until you know something that's remotely close to it, which is a very interesting. So sort of like the only place you can look is here and here, really.
Yes, it is. Because we're seeing purple and orange, and this can't be purple or orange. That is a third colour, and 3 was the maximum. So it is telling me something. I'm going yellow here again. So this is a 3. And that's therefore a 2 just by Sudoku. Now, this can't be 7 anymore. But is it 5, 2, 3 all in purple, or is it 8, 2 in purple and 3 joins with that? I don't know. I don't know. I really want to know, and I don't know. This. Oh, this could be high. If that is a 3-7 pair, and that's a 2-8 pair. Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at row 4. These two are both high. Look, they see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in their row. So they're high. They're in different regions.
Yeah, the setting time, so a lot of the setting time Ranks is pointing out was in box 7, because there's, as Mark has pointed out, there's a couple ways this could resolve a priori. And likewise, we spent a lot of time dealing with how this could resolve, because this could have been the 5-2-1-2 version for a long time. So that was another ambiguity that sort of lived in the puzzle for a long time before it all got resolved.
This one on the right, what color is that? That's blue, I think. Now, this digit is low and it sees 2, 3, and 4. Oh, this is the easier place to go. So that's a 1. Now I'm going to take 8 out of this as a possibility, because it would need to be 8, 1, 1. But I'm not taking 7 out, because that could be a blue 2. However, these two, I think the only way for them to join together, since it can't go 2, 7, 1 now, that must be a 2, 8 pair. And that's finished red. This cell that I'm now pointing at, which is going to go purple, no, green, is going to go green, there it is, green. That cannot join to this because we can't put a 2 in it. So it's different and it carries on down here. Now, blue can still be 7, 1, 2. This one has either a 3 or a 4 as a low digit.
I recall this having an annoying amount of optionality.
I mustn't forget 1, 2, 3, 4 as a possibility generally. I hope I haven't yet. Oh, that 1 is looking across by Sudoku and fixing the 9, 1 pair. Now, that might be quite interesting because 1 is ruled out of all of these cells. What is this? By Sudoku, 5, 6, or 7.
How does he do that? That is like one of the things that's just like most remarkable to me about Mark is just his ability to look at a cell and instantly know what candidates go in the cell. Like literally it is faster for him than hitting the mark button in Sudoku Pad.
And we can't have a 1 here. So, if this was a 5, we must join up to a 2, 3 pair somewhere here, I think. Yep, that's right. If this is a 6, we can't have a 3, 1 pair here, so that would have to be a 4. And if that's a 7, this is a 3. That's weird. That's really different. Well, it's It's always 3 or 4 because it can't be 2. But if this is 5, there's a 2 in one of those positions. Oh, I don't know what that means for this cell. Oh, now I'm getting stuck again. My goodness, this puzzle goes on. I wonder how much of this was planned by Zeta and how much by chat. It does amuse me. So this could be 712, or it could be just 91. But this could be 532 either way, or it could just stop at 64 or 73. I mean, that just leaves a variety of possibilities to me. The only low digit we can put in there is a 4. We could get a 1 into that cell. Oh, there just seem a lot of possibles now. Bother. And none of these have reached across to fix my uncertainty over here. Right, if that went 5, 2, 3, this would have to be low. It would be 1 or 4.
I thought he's been very nice.
And therefore, these couldn't be 7 or 8. That's true, because 7, 1 in either case would need a 2 in these cells. So that would be a 5, 6 pair. So I'm speculating about this being 5, 2, 3. We'd have to have 1, 4 here. We'd have to have 5 and 6 here. The 6 would have to go... Well, no, hang on. The 5... Five, 1, 4 is the only way to do it, because the only low digit we can get in the rest of this column is 4.
Amazed how efficiently Simon and Mark often solve puzzles without chat. Like I get stuck all the time. Even with chat, sometimes we get stuck.
4. So if that was the case, we'd have a 5, 1, 4. And we'd have a 6, 4 that would end... Oh, that is really plausible. Bother! And that was if this was 5, 2, 3. Which seemed to me the less likely option anyway. That's really irritating.
It was Chameleon that made the add-on. But if you ask on the Discord, someone will give you a link.
Yeah,
Alan.
5, 1, 4 and a 6, 4. Okay, that's what would happen if that was 5, 2, 3. Now, the alternative is this is 8, 2. Then I think this has to be 3, 7. Or does it? Could it be 3, 6, 1? Then this would be a 4. This would have to be a 5, and that's impossible. Okay. So this would be 3, 7.
So the really helpful thing to do here, by the way, if you're curious, what is it that he could notice? In this column of 1, 2, 3, 1 of 4, 6, and 5 is gone. So 2 cells in this column sum to a minimum not of 4, 6, but of 4, 7, which is 11. And so he can draw a border there and a border there. And then thanks to the genius, as I mentioned, of J40 putting this gray cell here, that sort of then pushes into this box and that resolves everything over here.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I think I've ruled 8 out of both of these cells. And that is right, actually. I could see that if I thought about that. 8 there would need to go with a 1 and it would just be impossible. 8 there can't go with a 3. So again, it would need to go, can't go with a 2 there. And again, it's impossible. So there's no 8 there.
Yeah, I agree with Garion. Definitely what's going on in column 4 is the hardest part because you have to spot that, which is tricky. Although I think it is a payoff of sort of the logic of paying attention to low digits for the whole puzzle. So I think it's hard to spot that, and then you need to spot one more thing, and then the whole puzzle collapses.
Um, oh, hang on. It's much simpler than I've been seeing, isn't it? Oh no, it's not. Because if this is 3-7, this can be high. I thought this was going to have to be low, but it's not necessarily low. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's look at these cells.
There
These
we
are
go.
from 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9 by Sudoku. And because of that, there can't be a 4-6 pair. And therefore, they're all in 3 different clumps. That's right. That is right. That is absolutely vital, I reckon. They're in 3 different clumps.
There we go.
So we can draw that black line in. And now this has to join to that. And it can't join... Well, it could if this was 5-1-4.
So like I feel like so much of the joy of solving puzzles is that like, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? And then seeing the thing and going, ah. Just to repeat the process throughout until the puzzle is solved.
Oh, bother. That's probably what it is. Well, okay, if it joins to yellow, it is definitely got to go 4-1-5. And that would have to be a 4, and that would have to be a 6. So if this joins to yellow, we get these digits that I'm putting in the corners in. If instead this stops there, then this is a 7-3 pair.
The hard part of this, when I say like there's another hard step, J40, I was thinking exactly what J40 said there. I think it's not going to be a hard step for Mark because Mark is so good at visualizing things.
That's a 2-8 pair for what it's worth. Doesn't really matter that yet. So we'd have a 7-3 pair there. This would be a pair that couldn't be 1-9 because that would make this... No, it could be 1-9. This... Oh, I don't know. Okay, this is 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. It must join to this cell. This can only be high. It could only be high if it was a 6. And it can't be 6 or 5. 7 would be too high to join to that. So it is definitely low. So this is 1 or 4. That is a definite pair. I also feel it's a definite pair that don't join together because they would cut this off. That's true. So there's a line between them. Come on, work it out, Mark, for goodness sake. So one of the possibilities is 4-1-5, the one I corner marked. The other one, this is a pair and is either 1-9 or 4-6. So if this can't be a 6 anymore because this would be impossible. So that is 5 or 7. And if it's 7, it joins with the 3, and if it's 5, it joins with 1-4. This can be a 6 joining to a 4. It can't be a 7 because it just can't make it. But it could be 5-1-4 there. Now, no. If it was 5-1-4 there, i.e. if that was a 5, it would go 5-1-4. This would be a 4 and would have to join with a 6 here. And now you'd have 4-6 here killing that cell.
J40 was correct.
That's
You would
right.
see that.
I'm just going to go through that in my head once more. If this was a 5, This couldn't be a 4.
This
would
was
have
the
to go
step I
5,
will
1.
say I was most squeamish about in the puzzle, because I was like, this requires a little, this is maybe a little fiddly, but I feel like it's a cool payoff for sort of how much you sort of have to think about all the possibilities here. I was a little like back and forth on whether I was okay with including this. But then I will say I watched Nell solve the puzzle, and Nell solved this in half a second.
1, 4. This would have become a 4. And the only way to join that to here is a 6. And that's a 4, 6 pair. Yes. This is not a 5. That's a 6. I thought that was going to let me fill it in. I'm not sure now. Now, this can't be a 1 because you can't get out. So that's a 4. And we've finished off orange. Much more importantly, this has become a 1. Oh, and this is either 4 or 9 now. Do I still not know what's going on down here? I don't bother. Let's get rid of the corner marks though. That's not a 4 now. That is high, and this is low. It's going with 7, 8, or 9, and it can't be 3 or 2. That is a 1. And that stops this being 1, 2, or 3. So this can't go round the corner. So it stops there. That is a new colour, green again. I don't know. I don't really care. So we can seal it off, and we know that's a 9. And that makes this a 4. And now it is 4, 1, 5, and they're all yellow, as Chris Martin would have told us. And this is a single purple region over here. Wow. And that is a 5. And there we go. Finally finished off the bottom left. Now, 4 there looks up here. 6 there. This is not now 4, 6, or 9. This is 7 or 8. But if it was 7, it would either have to go with 1, 2 there, impossible because of that, or with 3 there, impossible because of that. So it's 8 going with 2. And that is obviously orange. And
obviously orange.
Seal it off. Now, here, we've got to have a low digit, and it's got to be a 4. And the only high digit that can go with in the box is a 6. That's got to be right, hasn't it? It just feels almost too easy. I mean, nothing's easy, but I'm finally getting a tiny bit of understanding of how the puzzle works. Oh, the 2 has looked up there and done those. There has to be a low digit in one of those 2. That's fair. They can't both be high. The only low digit available is a 4, which goes there. This one has to be less than... well, it has to be a 6. It is. It is a 6. That is another region.
I love how I have so shaken his faith in numbers.
That it's red. Okay. So, another region done. And sealed off. Now, this is going to have to join to green. Now, the only way I remember green, the only way green was going to be able to be 3 was 5, 2, 3. And I can fill those in now. And I haven't broken any impossibilities yet, which is great. Now, this can't be a 7 anymore. That's a 9, and we've got another sealed off region. Wow, and now we've just got 8 cells left to complete. This one, by Sudoku, is 7 or 8. If we made it an 8, that would have to be a 2. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it a 7. This can't be 1 or 2. That's a 3. We've got another region. That one is, what colour are you telling me that is? Orange. Okay. We'll colour that off. This cell, let's try and do the same thing.
Alas, yeah, the 3 in the corner got missed.
3, 5, or 6. That is a much less helpful possible number. But this sees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 8. This is high. So they're going to join together. And, well, be careful. 3, 6, 1 is possible. This can't be a 9. This can't be a 5 or a 6, so that's definitely 3. This is either 3, 7 or 3, 6, 1. I don't know which yet. That's interesting. Let's keep doing Sudoku, because I'm better at that than clumps. This one is 6, 7, or 9. Wow, that's a big number. That has to join to something. This is
Yeah, I
4,
do really
5,
like
or
the ending
6.
here. The ending,
About this. I'm
I think it
keeping
was
doing
J40
this.
who
Let's make,
spotted
put in all
at
the
some point in the setting process. I think J40 just said, if we just don't add any more clues, it's unique. And it turned out to be correct and have a cool finish down here in the corner.
marks. See, that one has a possibility of a 1 in it, which feels quite strong. Now, that's really interesting. So if this was 3, 6, 1, they would all have to join together, but the minimum sum would be 12. That's no good. So this is a sealed off 2-cell region with a 7. And these are 2 2s, because they can't be 1, 2, 3, 4. That one, it cannot go with that one, I don't think. There doesn't seem to be a combo there that works. So we've got 2 vertical dominoes. That's all the pen tool marking. Let's give them colours.
Selena was very upset about this missing line over here.
As numbers, this can't be a 5. Oh, I can't see it. This can't be 5. This one is either 6. Oh, it can't be a 4. So this can't be a 6. This is a 4. That's a 6. This is 7 or 9. It's got to be 9 out of those. And this is a 1. And I think we're finished. Yes. What a puzzle. That's mad, isn't it? Jello. I see why it's Jello, because it's kind of wobbling all over the place. And I really did feel that, actually. I should have talked about this being called Jello at the beginning. It's a really clever idea. But to me, I find that just monstrous. Do note that you couldn't complete the grid by filling in grey cells, because that one has no possible fill, for instance. Really?
How does he see that? That's impressive. Yeah, that was great. Fantastic solve by Mark. I'm very impressed by that. But yeah, that is a very natural question to ask, is at the end, will you be able to fill in the grays? And yeah, you definitely can't. You cannot fill in the grays, because as Mark points out, this doesn't have any value, or there's no place for an 8 in this box because that 8 looks over here.
Interesting. Well done to everybody who worked with zetamath, but especially well done to zetamath for coming up with that. And I'm glad you sent it to us. That's a fascinating puzzle. I've enjoyed that a lot. Thanks, as always, for watching us on the channel, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you, Mark. That was quite a fun solve to watch. Yeah, it is surprising how many 9s there are, because let's count. There's 1 9, 2, 3, 4, 5 9s. I think there's 5 9s, which is a lot more 9s than you'd expect, because you'd think you'd have to use the 1s on other things. But there we go. So yeah, so if you've been part of this, you can see sort of the whole process here from us setting the puzzle together all the way through Mark solving it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I greatly enjoyed watching Mark solve that. And with that, I'm going to wrap up there for tonight, but I will be back streaming tomorrow. So I hope to see you then. You can check the channel and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and you can see the stream tomorrow when we'll be joined by Nell, and we'll be solving some puzzles together. So I look forward to seeing you there. But have a great time for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.